1995 Toyota Levin AE111, when Toyota built a Honda Prelude.
If Corollas had a start with a temporary trim, it wouldn't faze me once to know it's here.
Fresh off the 25-year lockdown, it's the AE111. Oh no, not the AE110. No, what do you think, we're plebes with 4 valves per cylinder? You think we're rolling with a silver top? Sheets parking like our sheets doesn't stink? No. This is the mighty blacktop 4AGE 5 valve per cylinder, 1.6 liter twin cam quad mechanical throttle body, 8,000 RPM redline, concho surprise. Ooh! 163 horsepower at 7,800 RPM and 119 pound-feet of torque at 5,600 RPM. 4 throttle bodies and 20 valves. This is classic Toyota doing show-off engineering. The car equivalent of not putting in third stringers when you're leading by 5 touchdowns. Toyota in the 90s was keeping their starters in and humiliating the other teams, running experimental plays for funsies.
Why do you need 4 throttle bodies?
You could accomplish the same things with one big throttle body and variable intake runners, which is interesting because Toyota did this exact engine configuration in the 80s. The MR2, which is also the genesis of the 4AGE, had variable intake runners. And this doesn't. And furthermore, Toyota was competing with themselves with the AE111 Levin. 11 serves the same market as the Celica, a 2+2 sport coupe. Now, a Prelude's B series is better than a blacktop. The blacktop doesn't rev as fast or as hard as a Honda B series, and the cam profile is less aggressive on the Toyota. But the 4AGE blacktop is smoother. It's better for being nice to your passengers. The seats are soft, welcoming, without too aggressive bolstering. The Levin is also tall people friendly. The footwells run deep and the seats go all the way back to the rear seats. Tim Strickler, the owner, is 6'4", and that's what drew him to the Levin, a JDM car that accommodates Americans. But aside from interior room, there are little gimmicky accommodations. It's very different from the Vivio we did last week. You get one folding cup holder up front that doesn't fit anything, and it interferes with the head unit. The side mirrors fold electrically, so that's neat, I guess. But other than that, 11 is just another 90s Toyota on the inside. No bystanders look at you. If you're buying a JDM import to get noticed by state highway rabble, 11 is not for you. Buy one of the vans instead. But when someone does notice your AE111, well, clear your schedule, because Tim was stopped for gas along the turnpike on the way here, and a trucker came up to him smiling a wide load. And he says, "I love this. Can I take pictures?" And Tim was like, "Yeah, take all the pictures you want." And the trucker told him that, well, he passed him earlier and was so excited that he could see it up close, and that he had the usual, "How do you get these?" questions. This Levin was sold by Japanese Classics, which is really the gold standard of importing JDM cars in the United States. There's Duncan Imports as well, and I'm sure people in the comments will tell me about other importers. And in popular culture, the AE111 was in Gran Turismo 1 and no anime. A Toyota Levin did exist in Initial D, but that was a 1980s model. Now, here's one thing you probably should not tell people that these JDM cars do. The fog lights stay on during high beam switchover. Now, that's legal in Japan, but illegal in the United States. I mean, I'm not going to say anything if you're not going to say anything, but I believe the law is we're not allowed to have dual headlights, which means you can have more than one light bulb, but you have to have only 2 forward-facing high-beam lights. Now, you can have running lights and everything else, but actual reflectors and projectors can only be 2. It's an ancient piece of legislation.
I am indigestion. I am the Exxon Valdez. My hole is a dumpster. It's garbage day.
Exhaust go. Look at me, I'm a four-cycle Toyota. Modified sometime in the early 2000s. I sound this on like on the highway the whole time. I get spit all over my microphone. That makes sense. So I am in 4th. Tim says he doesn't notice the drone, but I notice the drone. There's no resonator in this exhaust. It just has this fart can on the back. So you just get these like resonant frequencies, and they're just slightly off, and of course they sit at the RPM you're at when you're on the highway. Below 2,000 RPM, there's not much power at all. And I think this is 11 or 11.5 to 1 compression. The sound is enjoyable when you get it up to 8,000 RPM, which is the happy spot. And because it doesn't feel like it's going to explode. Rev slower than you think. A Honda B Series climbs revs faster, but is the car actually quicker? Toyota found a way to, at least through vibrations, make the engine sound normal at higher speeds. And by higher speeds, I mean higher revolutions. The power steering is very good. It's the hint of power steering. It's the LaCroix of power steering on the AE111, a memory of power steering. Yeah, it has a pump, and I believe it's an early version of adjustable power steering, because when you're in the parking lot, it's just kind of a normal, just slightly on the heavy side power steering, kind of like a Subaru. But when you're out on the highway, and when you're winding through some curves, this thing's pushing back against you. It's letting you know you're turning hard. I think there might be some sort of valve or something that restricts the flow and gets this steering pretty close to manual. And I enjoy that. I didn't even notice it until I'm in a corner and realizing there's a lot of this feels like a Miata here, a track Miata. And then you slow back down again and the power steering comes back. And in the corners, that's where this car really shines. I mean, of course, it could use a 6th gear to keep this engine in the power band, but that's fine. This 5th generation of the 4A GE engine became the enthusiast choice in some circles due to mostly how accessible it was for tuning and high-lift camshafts. Of course, this is in Japan. Models with the 1.6 engine were ranked as the top trim level, since owners had to pay more road tax because of the displacement. It goes back to the Local Tax Act of 1950, where Japanese drivers have to pay a tax each May determined by the engine's displacement and classification of the vehicle, whether it's a personal car or something you use for business purposes. Exterior dimensions also factor into it, but a long story short, there is a tax for engines below 1,000 cc's, 1 liter, with the amount increasing every 500 cc's until you get to a 6-liter engine. Still, taxes don't deter people from going after these engines for drifting thanks to its accessibility for tuning and high-lift cams. But in Japan, we, in the United States, never got the blacktop. An AE111 in the corners at high RPMs feels like it's subverting the laws of man. Taking corners like a Dear John letter, reckless abandon takes hold as traction gives way to an explosion of profanity uncoiling into the star-checkered skies above the canyon roads and their red dirt margins. For anyone who's ever cried into his pillow because his best friend chose to rush Sigma Chi instead of Delta House, the Toyota Corolla Levin is here to remind you that relationships are temporary, but like the Wu-Tang, the Corolla is forever. Corollas, including this expanded universe Corolla, have the reputation as one of the 3 starter Pokemon of licensed driving, and that if you're still driving one after you've had the chance to move on to something flashier, you must have done something wrong, you must have failed somewhere, but failure is the father of all success. Toyota used the Corolla to sire a line of affordable beaters with the dependency second only to the coach of a losing t-ball team. With a Corolla, everybody's getting pizza and cake. The Levin gets about 30 miles per gallon combined, maybe. The name Levin comes from the Tasman Series motor race venue of the same name, in addition to Levin being the Old English word for lightning, which pairs with the trueno, the Spanish word for thunder. Park them side by side and you get the lyrics to an Imagine Dragons songs we're sick of hearing. Maybe it's obnoxious to wax philosophical about the Toyota Corolla name. Or maybe it's too introspective. But if you think about it, the Toyota Corolla is the English major of cars. On the one hand, English studies can be applied universally, so that you could analyze and critique just about anything through the lens of art and semantics. And in the same way, the Corolla is a Rosetta Stone that can unlock a wider understanding of cars at any stage of automotive enthusiasm, because it's both an intricate, yet penetrable system. But the English language, English literature, is and will always be a discipline whose masters are forever apprentices. English is not math or science or history. It's not fixed. And it's that lack of fixedness that denies us the ability to master it. I mean, in Chaucer's time, there was no standardized spelling. So you can get granular with it. And the arguments about meaning and definition just go round and round and round. By the same token, a Corolla is so deeply entrenched in its identity as the every car that it's difficult to pin down what exactly a Corolla is better at than other cars in its class. But that's what's exciting about it. Its identity is never fixed. Because, like English studies, a Corolla is a web of relations, with each element acting as spokes on a wheel. The interconnectedness between rhetoric and composition, but also between a Toyota Corolla Levin and a Sprinter Trueno, or a Toyota Matrix, because this is also a Corolla, the XRS. It's all part of the same family of hopelessly twisted disciplines, of conflict between what counts as true and what gets cast aside as an outsider, what is part of the norm and what subverts it. And yet, the changing nature of something like the Corolla or English studies begs the question, is either one even relevant anymore? Is there any cultural intimacy of a car that's been evolving since the 1960s? Mustang, maybe? How about Corvette? They've been around, but they've always been two-seater sports cars. The Corolla has been many different things. How different can each Corolla get? Such that it would be exciting to an average person. And do those average persons even care about this? I doubt it. I think it all comes down to the name. People like that the Mustang survived, and the Corvette did. And maybe the Corolla is exactly the type of consistency automotive history has needed throughout the years, even as aspects of it have changed over time and new features are introduced and bodies are completely different as a reaction to the demands of each era. But that's how things grow, in comparison to and conversation with each other. It shouldn't be enough for each branches of an English department to simply say, don't worry about it, you can exist, I can exist, and we never have to interact with each other. English is interaction. At its most basic level, it's the interaction between student and text, teacher and student, students and their own ideas, students with students, and yes, teachers with teachers. And so it is with the name Corolla. A conversation with the Trueno, the Celica, the Camry as it evolved from it, and all the hatchbacks. A conversation with the era that birthed it, that saw a car like this ascend from a modest, long-lasting fuel sipper to the Levin, a car that is a blank slate, a canvas to its owner. Trim levels and model years will come and go, but the Corolla will always be relevant. It sounded like I was getting to a big point at the end of this, but this only matters to car people, doesn't it? Your average person, if they have a question, they see Levin and they go, what? And you say it's a Corolla and they don't believe you. Or it doesn't say Corolla. All right, it's a 90s Toyota. It's called a Levin. And you know what? You could probably get away with just saying, it's a Corolla Levin. No, wait, that's right. You can't say Corolla. Hell, I'm still stuck in the car world. No, this is a 95 Toyota. And if they ask what models, they say Levin. And then you say, it's kind of like the Celica. And then the person goes, okay. And then they go eat sugar. Anyway, trim levels and model years will come and go, but the Corolla will always be relevant. As for English studies, I don't know. But at least we get to put those degrees to work for a few minutes every Monday.
'Cause Levin's a word that means legroom, that means legroom, that means legroom, but only symbolically.